Welcome to Literacy Mindset, where education leaders from across the country share strategies for improving K-12 instruction today and preparing for the challenges of tomorrow. The stakes are high. Students are facing new academic demands, and educators are navigating an ever-changing educational landscape. Each episode, we explore the most effective literacy initiatives, innovative tools, and strategies that are reshaping education. Whether you're an educator looking to improve student outcomes or passionate about driving meaningful change in schools, the Literacy Mindset brings you the insights and strategies you need to stay ahead. This is where education leadership meets real-world impact.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Excited to have my guest today, Miss Jessica Lauder from Visions in Education, a charter school in Northern California, serving the Northern California area. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you today and just have the conversation here on Literacy Mindset. We like to talk about all things literacy, intervention, special education, and just the practices that are going on and the great things that are happening in the world of education. So let's start with just a little introduction. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Perfect. My name's Jessica Lauder, and I have been in education, I feel like all my life, right? So lifelong learner. Welcome to the club, right? But my grandmother was a teacher. My mother was a special education teacher for 30 years. My sister's a special education teacher with me at Visions, actually. And so it's really something that's in my blood. I definitely have a passion for serving students with disabilities. I was a classroom teacher for 11 years in a large school district and also in Northern California, and then moved into administration as a program specialist. For about 12 years, I served as a program specialist before moving into an assistant director within the same district, a large district of 64 schools. And then for the past, this is my second year now, so almost a year and a half, I have been the director of special education for Visions in Education, and we are the largest charter school in Northern California. We have about 7,500 students and 9 county geographic regions, about the size of New Jersey, people like to say. So pretty expansive. We are a non-classroom based charter school. We have our TK through 8th grade program serves students through a homeschooling academy model, while our high school programs utilize a independent study program. And we did just initiate an online middle school program for 7th and 8th grade as well. So we are building our programs. And I think I'm missing university prep. We also have a high school program that's
Okay.
university prep and early college, where students have the ability to graduate with their AA and high school diploma at the same time. So exciting stuff going on over at Visions.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's great. Well, let's dive in and start talking about some of the interesting things that you guys are doing. So, a charter school where many of the students join from home, right? So, what is a literacy initiative at a district like that look like, and maybe give us some of the differences between that and a traditional brick and mortar district?
Great. Yeah, great question. We're talking about elementary when we're looking at literacy, although, spanning the grade levels, we're looking at teaching reading really at those younger grade levels, which is entirely within our homeschool academy. So we do have a number of curricular choices. So the work kind of starts there. Our CTs, we call them CTs, they're general education teachers. So we use a lot of different acronyms in our work at Visions. So they support the families in implementing the curriculum. We have a multi-tiered system of support model. So we have tiered interventions where the CT support the parents in implementing some of those interventions, as well as synchronous instruction classes that are taught by the general education teachers for additional support for students who need that. And as we move up to the higher level tiers within the special education realm, we have a structured literacy specialist who implements our highest tier of literacy intervention, and that's an ongoing model that we use for academic and social emotional, is that multi-tiered systems of support. But because we are non-classroom based, it is a combination of some in-person and virtual, but the majority of our intervention components are presented virtually to students with that large geographic area. So for example, our structured literacy program is completely virtual. We've got all of the kiddos interacting with the teacher through the virtual model, online digital curriculum that is interactive through tools that we provide to the students to have in their home, as well as with an interactive screen. So that would be one of the key differences, is just presenting the information virtually, and accessing students is also, I think, one of the differences when we are looking at brick and mortar. You have your students right there, right?
There in the room.
Yeah. So when we're in our model, getting the students all together and coordinating schedules can be a little bit difficult, but we get them there, and I think that presenting the importance of that literacy instruction and working with the parents as a partner in the work is one of our core values.
Got it. No, that's excellent. And how do you, sometimes the question is how do you incorporate technology into the building? You guys live and die at some level by technology. So how do your teachers think about intervention, and where does that kind of manifest itself in a school day? Maybe compare it to how it would be in a traditional brick and mortar.
Yeah, so we have all of our students have Chromebooks, and then of course, it's the technology and then also the internet access. So we do have the students have the ability to have a MiFi if they don't have consistent internet access. So we do have those available for students. And then within the technology itself, explicitly teaching how to use some of the technological tools for accessibility, especially in the realm of special education, when we're looking at accessibility features that are sometimes embedded into curricular options. Sometimes it's, an add-on like Google Read and Write is one that we use pretty consistently to make things more accessible for students in their digital curriculum. Because we're a homeschool model, we do have students that are using print materials as well. So we have our teachers meet with parents, sometimes in the home, sometimes at a library, sometimes through Zoom. So it is very much a combination of things and determining what works best for that particular student and family. We also have in-person events, so we have a lot of opportunities to see kids in person.
In their full 3 dimensions.
Yes, and they're living, breathing, running around. So a lot of coordination in making sure that we're offering students what they need and what works for the student and the family.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. How do you think about your evaluation criteria? How does the district make decisions on, what to offer the families? Is there a rubric of sorts that you're using? Is it we just want as many options as possible and let families choose from there? So kind of talk us through that.
Yeah, so I think one of the big evaluation criteria that we use is our summative assessments or benchmarks. We use iReady. So every student, when they come in, they take that iReady assessment, and we do data dives. We're a PLC model school, and so we're looking at, what do they need to know? How do we know when they get there? What are we going to do if they don't get there, right? So we are doing those data dives with iReady, and also their work samples from the curriculum on a consistent basis. So the general education teachers meet with students and their families once a month, and they are looking at work samples, looking at the results of the iReady assessment, and they're looking at where they are in comparison with the standards and where there may be opportunities for interventions. And we initiate a multi-tiered systems of support based on those criteria. And then every 2 weeks is additional data is taken when students are in interventions. I can speak from the special education side. With our structured literacy, we use a structured literacy program that has consistent intervention that's ongoing. So students are evaluated on a weekly basis to determine the pacing of the curriculum, how we move forward, when it's time to adjust groups, and how quickly we move through the lessons based on that ongoing assessment piece. Being a PLC school, we are in the midst of developing common formative assessments. We did last year adopt our essential standards for English language arts. So we do have our essential standards firm, and now we are developing common formative assessments that are curriculum neutral, if you will, that we, regardless of what curriculum a family has chosen, that we can administer and determine where a student is with that, which each specific essential standard, so that we can guide the interventions based on that feedback.
There's probably a varying number here, but is there a guidance that you have on how many curriculums you offer so that parents can choose from? And does that differ when you think core curriculum versus your intervention curriculum?
Yeah, great question. So we are in the process where we've done a curriculum project where we piloted several different curricular options for both ELA and math. And we're currently in the process of paring down. I can't recall the exact number, but too many different curricular options because when you expand, we want to balance the choice that parents have. They're coming to our alternative model because they want that. A lot of times, choice is what's driving them to an alternative model, right? They want to be more involved. They want to have this choice. We're trying to balance that with ensuring that we are offering a guaranteed, viable, rigorous curriculum. So the past 2 years, we underwent a curriculum project where we piloted many different options, and we're working on paring it down to 3 core curricular options for ELA and math. That'll also give the teachers an opportunity to become more of experts in those curricular
There are
options,
lots
right?
and
So
lots
that
of
they
it.
can best
Yeah.
support our parent partners and the students, and that we can ensure that everything is standards aligned, and that we can create those common formative based on our essential standards that we've adopted through the PLC model. So that is in the works. Our students that are new coming into Visions are choosing from those core curricular options, and our students who have been with us, we're working on transitioning them to the curricular option that would best meet their needs. And then when we're looking at students with disabilities, we have the general education teacher and the case manager are required to collaborate and look at w- what are the students' needs? We look at the psychological assessment, their cognitive profile, to really determine what curricular option within those core curriculum are going to best meet the needs of those students. Because some are, have more visual supports, some have, differentiated instruction embedded. And so the case managers and the general education teachers do a lot of collaboration when they're looking at what would best fit a student based on their needs, and coming at that from an asset-based lens
Yeah,
is
that's great.
something that really important to us.
One of the topics that seems to come up a lot in brick and mortar schools relative to technology, I would classify it as two things. The younger grades, screen time. In the older grades, it's distraction. Like, my goodness, put your phone away. You're on Instagram when we're trying to do a lesson. How does it look at visions, and how do you guys think about those two things relative to technology in the learning process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that the screen time, it definitely can go both ways. So, you know, we do have a combination of digital and print material in our TK through eighth grade program. So our core curricular options do have print material with them, even if they have a digital version, so that students do get the paper pencil experience. There's also some performance tasks that are embedded that student require students to get up away from the screen, move around, do things. And then we have events where we have students come out and engage in those activities so that they're getting that social aspect as well. So there's a lot of things that are not screen based, especially at our younger levels, so that they're not focused solely on that aspect when they're doing virtual instruction.
Got it, got
Um,
it. What about on the distraction side? Does that come up?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it does. We more so on. I think I'm going to speak a little bit of my parent voice because my son
Fair.
happens to be a student in our high
Yeah, so
school
does this happen
program.
in this
Yeah,
happen in the law
yeah, so
household?
we work with parents we on boundary setting with some of the distractions that can be in place when with the technology. Um, we offer parenting classes, and with our students with disabilities, also we uh, have behavioral supports that we put in place if we have students that need to have some support with that executive functioning and time management. In the high school side, all the students are enrolled in an advocacy class where one of their classes is actually focused on time management, accessing the different activities within visions, events, the counselor, college and career activities. But within that, there's time management pieces. Every week, students in the high school program are required to have a planner completed that the teacher goes over with them. So on the high school side, the teacher meets with the student weekly, and so they go over the planner and ensure that there's a plan for the assignments that are due that
So
week.
you're
And
you're tackling it more from the educating lens. Like, let's help you manage your
yes,
time.
these
Let's
are
give you
life
reasons.
skills.
Right. These are life skills.
Definitely life
Because it
skills.
doesn't matter. You're going to have a device in your hand, and you're going to have to
Yes.
figure out how to navigate it.
And I mean, along that same line, I feel like we're on the forefront of working through what AI looks like in a school setting. It's huge. And they are going to have a device in their hand. They are going to have access to AI. So how do we approach that from an educational lens and teach them how to use this tool appropriately? It is not a replacement for your thinking. It is a tool that you can use. And so we actually have teachers who are beginning to use AI as a teaching tool for introducing that to students and how they can use that as a tool versus a replacement for um, the work, which we do find, and I hear from my friends in brick and mortar, like it's all over the place, right? So we're not going to eliminate it. We need to teach them how to use it appropriately as a life skill.
I love that. I mean, I think that as you see so often, there's lots of different ways to try and avoid it or just keep it away. And at some point in time, the learning process has to happen. And why not have it happen in partnership with the school district where there's so much time being spent? So love that.
Absolutely.
Let's take a step back just for a second and talk about reading or literacy instruction. You've been in special education for a long time, and you've come like a lineage of special education teachers, right? Why is reading so hard sometimes for so many kids?
I think it's there's not a common understanding that reading is not an innate skill. It is something that has to be explicitly taught, practiced. Reading requires neural pathways to form in your brain. And the only way to do that is to direct, explicitly teach those things in a systematic way over and over and over, and the exposure to the written text, consistent exposure to that. So I mean, that's just in general, and we break it down for students with disabilities. We're adding on layers of processing disorders that impede those neural pathways from being formed in one way or another. And so it's so important that we adhere to the science of reading methodology, and we look at, okay, this is research. This is not new
Right.
research, right? This is dates back to before you and me, right? This we know this, and we've gone through shifts in education where it has been adopted and forgotten and adopted
Right.
and forgotten. And I just people have developed their own methods, and now we have just this drive right now. I think it's an awesome opportunity for us to get everybody on board with the science of reading. And because we have so many people, so much research, you can't refute all of the things that need to be in place for students. And
Right.
so, I think like in California, we've got universal screening coming next year. That's going to be huge. So the universal screening for dyslexia goes into place in
Right.
July 1, and I think that's going to be really, really huge for us to be able to look at kids at an early age and identify those kids that need a higher
Right.
level of
Right.
intervention really early on, because there is an optimal time for developing those neural pathways for reading. It's just science. It is just like, learning a foreign language. Good luck learning a foreign language as an adult if you had no exposure as a child, right? So there's that optimal time for learning to connect, for letter sound correspondence. And so it's really important that we do that early on.
So how do you
Um,
think about intervention in that framing, knowing that there are various levels of challenges that get presented across the grade levels? Do you structure intervention differently in different grade levels? In your MTSS, obviously you've got these tiers of structured support, but just kind of walk us through what it is that you guys do it across the grade span and how you think about it.
yeah, I think so. There are differences at different grade levels, but you
Okay.
still have to go back to that multimodal approach to teaching reading and the letter sound correspondence and look at kids where they are and fill those gaps before you move on. I think where it differs is really the literature that you have for students needs to be developmentally appropriate and age appropriate for them. They may not be able to decode at a fifth, sixth grade level. You're not going to give them, a kindergarten book for practicing reading. So you that's where it shifts, and you need to. There's a heavier reliance on technology for simplifying some of the vocabulary and language to make it accessible for students that are older but are reading at a lower grade level, so that we are continuing to um, support their comprehension and access
Right.
to grade level curriculum. So I think as they get older, looking at not not just technology to access that, because we still need that explicit systematic instruction for building that decoding, but that they have access to age appropriate materials that they can access either by reducing the difficulty so that they can decode it depending on where they are, or through technology like text to speech, where they can, or audio. We use Learning Ally as a human reader component, so access through audio or reducing the difficulty, but of age appropriate books, so they're still getting that exposure to grade level um,
Do you
concepts.
do you find decoding being one of the more challenging things that's presented across the grade levels in your district?
Absolutely. I mean, you have decoding and encoding, right? The reading and spelling pieces, and you really have to have those things in place before you can lighten your cognitive load and get that comprehension component, right? So those things have to be solid for fluency and comprehension to come. So you can't just move past them. You have to continue to work on that decoding component.
That leads me to another question. Thinking about visions in particular, how do you operate a library? How do you get text, like high interest text, in the hands of your students in the construct of homeschool or online academies? Can you talk us through that?
So we do have students at Visions have student funds,
Okay.
and so we have curriculum partners that parents can place the orders. In our homeschool academies, the parents go in and they place the orders after consulting with the general education teacher or the case manager. If they have an IEP, they're talking about what books to order, and they go in and they place those orders, and we have a whole ordering department that makes it happen, and they get to the house. So it just comes out of their student funds for ordering. And then with things that need to be adapted, having them in a digital format allows us to use some of the assistive technology tools to simplify the language and things like that.
Let's put on our future hats here for a second. What needs to still be invented in technology to make the lives of special education teachers better?
I think that there are some aspects of AI that will eventually um,
Could get there.
could could be really helpful in some of the more clerical side of special education
Right.
teachers.
The
Yeah,
compliance paperwork side, right? Like, let's have
compliance,
something be
right,
done.
and
Okay.
um, just synthesizing the data that they gather and they have access to, and assisting with I mean, there are things assisting with like the data collection and interpreting those pieces a little more automated versus the manual components that they're relying on now. Um, I do know that there's work being done at the state level with creating templates for IEPs, because here in California, you have your special education information system, and then other districts might have a different special education information system. So IEPs look different depending on where you are. They all have certain required components, but that I think retracts from the continuity for students that do have high mobility. So that work being done at the state level, I think, will be helpful for that continuity for students as they
Yeah.
move between districts.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I love that states are working on that, finding ways to remove the compliance, clerical, as you refer to it, burden on teachers, but special education teachers in general feel a heavy burden on that. So, uh, well, what is your future, uh, crystal ball tell you about education 5, 10 years from now? Do you see things being exactly the same? I think with AI movement, a lot of people are starting to say, well, maybe it could look like this, or maybe it could look like that. But from your lens and what you're doing every day, day in and day out, do you see it evolving a lot in the next 5 years? Do you think we're going to take longer than that before much change happens? I love thinking
I
about the
mean,
future.
in I think everything takes a really long time in education. That's my safe bet answer. I would say for me personally at Visions, because this is my second year at Visions, and we have put so many initiatives in place just in the last year. And there's so many things that I still want to do. We're really building a continuum of services within our model that didn't exist a few years ago. So increasing our synchronous instruction classes, increasing our highest tier of intervention. As I shared before, we just started a structured literacy program, so expanding on that. Um, Counseling embedded program, because mental health is such a high need for our students, especially our middle and high school students right now. So things I see for me personally, we will be different in 5 years here at Visions, because I have so many. I know my staff is probably saying, slow down a little
Yeah, they're
bit.
like listening right now. Wait, what?
Yeah,
More things?
but it's really exciting to see all of the different components that we're bringing to students where they are, and that strengths-based lens, asset-based planning is another component that I know is expanding at the state level, and then also within our organization, really looking at what the strengths are of the student, and just getting beyond that deficit mindset.
That's excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for spending some time with me today. This has been excellent to learn more about what you guys are doing there in the northern part of the great state of California, and all of the things related to literacy and special education. And we hopefully will be able to connect again soon. So, thank,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great connecting.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe to Literacy Mindset. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for updates, resources, and to join the conversation. Have a topic you'd like us to explore? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.